That was my move before they named it.
It's a good move.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, it would be so much appreciated if you can give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or if you can like, subscribe, share, follow, or do whatever you can to support us here at the Lakers Fast Break, NBA Draft Junkies, Lakerholics.com, and the Run the Floor podcast, and also Pop Culture Cosmos as well. It is truly appreciated. That sigh of relief is myself signaling out there that the Lakers, even though they set their foot way off the gas in the last half of the fourth quarter, still managed to pull out a not so comfortable victory, 110-100 over the Houston Rockets, a game in which they dominated for 3.5 quarters. They really did a lot of right things on both the offensive and the defensive end. Didn't need a whole lot of LeBron today, and it really showed because everybody else played an integral role to help out LeBron. And it was just such a great team effort today on both ends of the floor for 3.5 quarters. But like I said, what we saw was similar to what the Clippers did against Denver. Let their foot off the gas, and Houston came roaring back from, I believe, as much as 21 down. 23 down in the second half to come as close to as 7 before the Lakers finally went and pulled down on top. And here today to talk about everything that's going on with that game is my good friends indeed. We're going to start off with my good friend from NBA Draft Junkies. He's back. He's feeling much better. Hopefully not out still in the rain like he was left out yesterday, because not the best time to do it. But he is the man indeed from NBA Draft Junkies. You got to go ahead and check out the dozens and dozens of profile videos you are now watching on Facebook Live. If anything, you need help on the NBA draft, as far as your team, as far as what prospects, where to go, even though it is heading now to a November, I think 18th is what's going to be the finalized date for the NBA draft, which gives them even more time to go ahead and put more profiles up, mock drafts, mock lottery, more podcasts, and more things relating to the NBA draft. It is Rafael Barlowe. And Rafael, great to have you back on the program, my friend. I'm glad you're feeling better. Glad you're not out in the rain with a fire alarm, and glad everything is going well with you now. What did you see most as far as from the Lakers? Because I thought their first half of trying to run the Rockets off the three-point line worked for the most part very well.
Yeah, they've figured out Houston. This series is over. It's finished.
You said that last time.
I did, but I mean, what can the Rockets do at this point? It's like they, and I tweeted that the Lakers know that Houston doesn't want to take mid-range shots. So
no way.
They're giving them mid-range shots. And then when the guys get into the mid-range, they're throwing the ball to guys that are covered. They've taken away the corner three. And then I just thought Houston came out flat. Like they had zero energy. I don't even think the Lakers came out with great energy to start the game, but their energy was a lot better than Houston's. And I mean, if the Lakers don't take their foot off the gas, this is easily a 20-point blowout. The game wasn't as close as the score indicated.
I agree. You're correct. I agree with you 100% on that, because for the most part, they had actually shut out the Houston Rockets when it came to second chance points and fast break points, which was essential for them gaining such a large lead. Also here today is my good friend. You can catch all the work that he does at Lakerholics.com. It is Sena Grice, the madman from Toronto, as I'm going to call him right now. And Magic Man, I want to ask you this. The things you saw that they did right, don't talk about the starting lineup change yet, because I'm going to leave that for Laker time. But I want to go ahead and ask you real quick, the other players that get so maligned by all of us, including myself, They got the job done tonight. Not just Caruso. It just seemed like it was a team effort all around, and they were so effective. What worked so right here today that we didn't see in previous games?
Yeah, I think tonight, Gerald, what we saw is a collective synergistic effort on both ends. Like, guys just pitching in and doing whatever, making the extra pass, getting the extra rebound. It seemed like with the 50-50 balls and the scramble plays, like there was just a purpose to the guys. You could see it in their eyes. They were really intense. They like you said, for 3.5 quarters, they were really dominating the game.
Absolutely. Yes, they were. And it was a beautiful sight to see, if you're a Lakers fan, how effective they were and how ineffective James Harden was.
Well,
for the most part.
yeah,
I mean, he had only 2 field goals for quite a period of a game.
Well,
Yeah.
it's what Rafael said a few days ago that got me really thinking about James Harden. Rafael said he takes himself out of these games. Like he literally just takes himself out of these games. I'm confounded by it, really. Um, you know, it just seemed. I remember what Kobe said once. Kobe said that he'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9. Because if he went 0 for 9 or 0 for 10, he'd be thinking what Raphael said about the Lakers changing the starting lineup, that he would look weak. That you know, he the other defenders might think that they have an edge with him. And I think that's the same with Harden. Like he takes himself out. He's had so many opportunities in this series to just pull up, take a 17-footer, and live with the results. But he's so stubborn with his offensive game. It's either dribble drive, or he's got to do his 18-second step back dribble three. And he can do so many other things, but he takes himself out of these games.
Absolutely, he does. And it's a good thing that he did so today, because it was for Houston. It was just so saddening for them, I'm sure, as you're a fan, to see how ineffective James Harden was at times. And it just alludes to some of those things that perpetuate in regards to, does he have it in the playoff time, or can he bring it all the time in the playoffs? And unfortunately today, go ahead.
I think you guys aren't giving the Lakers defense enough credit. They made him take the ball out of his hands. And yeah,
Tonight,
I mean, he was still aggressive tonight in the sense that he got to the free throw line a lot. But as far as getting up shot attempts, they trapped him. Sometimes it was late traps at the end of the shot clock. I think that he's been playing patient. He's been playing at a good pace. I mean, my issue is when he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't move. He just kind of stands there.
Yeah.
But I feel like all the credit goes to the Lakers defense, because they took away, for the most part, his drives. And then when he went to drive, they packed the paint, and then they stayed on the shooters. And yeah, I mean, I just feel like the Lakers defense deserves all the credit tonight, because their game plan, he only got 11 shots. So
Well, and we've seen with Caruso, I mean, LeBron he has a synergy with him on the court, that they understand one another out there. I'm not sure whether it's the energy they both bring on the court, or whether it's Caruso's ability to just kind of like be a sponge and just absorb what Rondo and LeBron are asking him to do. But it's a combination of things. And you can see in the plus minus in the regular season and in the playoffs now. So, I mean, when LeBron's effective out there and AD's effective, when they bring in Alex, there's just a synergy there. And if you add in a KCP or a Danny Green or someone else, there just seems to be an effectiveness with those three, and you add 2 others.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was something very good to see. Plus, Rondo had another solid game. And it just seemed like they were getting a collective team effort, like Rafael had said, not only on the offensive, but a defensive end as well. And here to talk about that, plus something he is very happy about in regards to a starting lineup change, which he says, or probably will say, was long overdue, is our good friend indeed. He's the mastermind behind Lakerholics.com. You got to be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com, where not only Rafael drops videos, I drop podcasts, Sena Grice drops article after article. Jamie Sweet has always his 5 things, but Laker Tom always has something to say at Lakerholics.com. And Laker Tom, I know you got to be happy with the starting lineup change of Markieff Morris in, and of course, JaVale McGee, a constant source of your irritation on the bench.
Yeah, when Mike Trudell's tweet came out announcing the starting lineup, that made my day. I think that a lot of credit has to go to Frank Vogel. I may have complained about him being a better late than never coach as far as making adjustments and changes, but I can't complain about the fact that he's methodically gone about his job, and every game he's made the right adjustments. When you look at the job the Lakers did in Game 3, the last 2 quarters of Game 3 or the second half and the first half of this game, they held the Rockets to 79 points in 4 quarters. This is a team that averages 113 points a game. They really shut them down. In the second half of the Game 3, they actually stopped the Rockets all 3 areas that the Rockets try to get their points on. They basically shut them down from the 3-point line, shut them down by blocking shots, and they were 1 for 11 attacking the basket, and then shut them down from the free throw line where they only got 6 free throws. Now today, they didn't do a good job on the free throw situation, obviously, because they gave up a ton of free throws, but they shut them down again on the 3-point shots, and they shut them down. Other than this last minute lapse, it was a terrific defensive job. Zach Lowe had a great story, a great article on the Lakers defense and how they were really dealing with Harden. And he pointed out one of the same things that Rafael did, which is after Harden gives up the ball, he never gets it back again. And he doesn't aggressively go to get it back again, which is kind of surprising. He basically, a lot of times, just stands out there at the half-court line and lets the rest of the play go by. This was the pivotal game. If the Rockets were going to make a series out of it, they had to make it in this game. And unfortunately, they don't have big game James. They have little game James. And the Lakers shut them down in that situation. The other thing that everybody doesn't recognize, which is something that I've been harping on in the last few articles, is the Lakers' decisions to go small. And by small, I mean on offense, playing 5 out. Today we played almost exclusively 5 out. Every time players were cutting through the middle because it was open, LeBron was hitting them, Rondo was hitting them. LeBron would go in there and post up, but basically nobody was sticking into the middle. We were keeping it wide open with players on the perimeter, and that offense really made it so easy for us to score at times, and it also allowed us to control the tempo of the game. And then on the other side of the coin, the defense is so much better when you take McGee out of the game. And that's, I resent any implication that I'm not a JaVale McGee fan, because I think that he is at times has his place and he'll get his opportunities in the Clippers series because they'll play big a lot, and I'm sure that JaVale will start again once they start that series. But I think you'll also see a whole lot of Morris because he really fits perfectly as the stretch 5. Him playing that 5 position allows Anthony Davis to remain at the 4, to remain taking his jumpers, to remain trying to slip inside, to be a help defender. And it's just a great combination. I think it's the solution. Whomever we play in the East is going to be another small ball team, another team that's got a stretch 5 center. And this is a great experience for the Lakers to do what they're doing against the Rockets, because they're going to need it when they get to the NBA Finals.
I got nothing but love for you, my friend, right? But and I just want to say we were on over 150 episodes now. People could just go back and listen to all the many times I've bagged on Rondo, and you've bagged on JaVale McGee, and you
I didn't
picked
even
on
bring up Rondo.
yeah. Well, me, I said for me. So I'm not going to say I'm. That's why I'm not exactly on the Rondo train yet that you're conducting. Choo
You might
choo.
as well get on.
Well,
I
wait,
might
wait a
have
minute, wait a
to. I
minute,
might have
Gerald. Hold it, Gerald.
But you said
Did I say
I
anything
resent the
about
fact
Rondo in
that
my little
JaVale
spiel?
McGee. I resent the fact that y'all don't like
11,
JaVale
10, and
McGee.
8. 11, 10, and 8. Second best plus minus on the team. Rajon Rondo.
Okay.
I think he was 1 for 2 from 3.
Yeah, he was. He was. And I said, like I said, I'm getting there. I'm almost ready to board it. I haven't got my ticket from you yet.
Well, you know, you got to fill out that apology letter in order and check off the right boxes in order to get a ticket to the train.
Me and about 90 million other Lakers fans as well. But you and
Hey,
JaVale McGee, they just have to listen to about maybe
Rondo's case a couple of times myself. So that's understandable. The mistake that we make, the mistake everybody makes, is that you don't look at the stats of when he's in the playoffs versus when he's not in the playoffs. And you go through the regular season, which is a whole different animal. It's very easy to forget that you're looking at regular season Rondo, not playoff Rondo.
Well,
some guys have the ability to turn it up in the clutch situation and really come through. And Rondo, the numbers show it. I mean, I wrote a whole article where I basically compared all of his stats from times, both his defensive and offensive rating stats, his points, his rebounds, his assists. And it's a very clear difference. And it's from early times when he was with the Celtics all the way through when he was with the when he was with the New Orleans Pelicans, and he upset the Portland Trailblazers to this particular series we're in right now.
well, it's clear that
it's real. It's not an illusion. It's not
clear. Well, it's clear he actually stepped up his game for the playoffs. It's clear now whether or not he can do that and matches up well enough for the Clippers series, because that's kind of the direction now it's heading. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, I think it's definitely worked out, and I'm happy for everybody out there that supported Rondo, because I'm not going to tell you I did, because analytics told me otherwise. So I'm
regular season analytics told you otherwise.
Regular season analytics, yeah. But sometimes it tells the story, my friend. But Sean, I know you had a couple seconds you wanted to go ahead, because I think you're a passenger on that train. I'm not quite sure.
Well, like Tom was saying, I remember on Inside the NBA, Kenny Smith once said he was talking to his old high school basketball coach, and the coach told him, Kenny, a guy can score 20 points a game, but when does he get the 20 points? Do you get them in the first quarter, or do you get them in the fourth quarter? And there are certain point guards who, for some reason, just turn it up in the playoffs. Yeah, it's Rondo. A few years ago it was Tony Parker. For some reason, Tony just accelerates and plays his best basketball in NBA Finals games. If Tony Parker isn't on that Spurs team, I think the Pistons actually sweep them, personally. But they ended up going to 7, and TP played well the whole series.
Well, it was something like today that you saw a quality effort from the other players. And Rafael, before we go ahead and focus in on what's coming up tomorrow for the NBA playoffs, I want you to go ahead and touch in on, is there anything that the Rockets really can do? Because as you said before, to even preface the series, they're not going to deviate pretty much who they are. So if you really can't deviate pretty much from who you are, maybe adding in a player here or there, or figuring out what went on with Daniel House Jr., I just, at this point in time, is there really no end as far as what Houston can do to go ahead and get back into the series?
It's over. I don't think there's. I mean, Westbrook had a better game today.
But then he scored 30 in the last game.
Yeah, he did. And he's scoring, but he's still somewhat of a liability, because when he doesn't have the ball, they're just loading up the paint on Harden. And like I said earlier at the top of the broadcast, they've taken away the corner three, which is so big in Houston's offense. And then when teams normally close out on the corner three, they can swing and get a an open three above the break, but they're not even able to get the ball in the corner. Like PJ Tucker, he's almost like Tom has been comparing him to a linebacker, but he's really been like a linebacker that doesn't get to play offense. He's just playing defense, standing in the corner, running back, playing defense, and he just hasn't been able to get shots.
No points. He scored no points today.
Yeah,
It's like an NFL fullback. They never get the
yeah,
ball.
right. And so, and I think it's human nature in the sense that your offense can dictate your defense in a sense. So if he's getting looks and if he's 2 for 6 from 3, I think his defense becomes a little better. He's going to always bring you effort, but when you're just running down the court and you don't even get a clean look, I think it just has somewhat of an impact on your defense, especially when you're guarding a guy like Davis, who is going to continue to get shots and shots. So you're just really out there just playing one end of the court. And so, like I said, that's big. Yeah, I mean, Harden and Westbrook just haven't had synergy this series, other than the first game, and that's key. That they haven't, and I guess last game on paper they looked good, but then Gordon was off, and today I don't know. I mean, I don't know if
It's just the eye test. How would you say that? It's just the eye test that just doesn't seem like everything is, like you said, with the synergy.
Yeah, well, today I didn't like the effort. Like, they didn't come out with any effort at all. And, I don't know if it was a long day because of the Daniel House situation. And then, reading that there's another unnamed player who was supposedly involved. And
That was Chandler, I think.
well,
Yep.
they said Chandler was the player, but then I think I read one article. Yeah, I read one article where they said Chandler he wasn't involved, but they said another unnamed player. So of course Twitter is saying, of course, a woman, they're gonna say it's James Harden, and then they're saying Daniel House is taking the fall for Harden, all that. But anyway, I don't know if that had an impact on their day, but they came out like flat with zero energy and down 2-1. I mean, that's the thing about the players. If you're down 2-1, it's almost like close to an elimination game in a sense, because if you get down 3-1, then it's nearly impossible to come back. Even though Houston has come back down from 3-1, we saw it last series, we saw it in the 2016 finals. So it's not necessarily impossible, like coming back from down 3-0, but you got to have a greater sense of urgency. And I don't know what they can do at this point. They'd have to put together 4 complete games and have a little bit of luck in order to win this series, and it doesn't seem likely.
Because right now, you could say that with the Houston Rockets, you're shooting 40% the last 3 games, and you're still not getting it done. And it's just, to me,
They won 14 straight games where they shot over 40%.
And
what Houston, and I've said it multiple times, I don't think the percentage is the big deal.
It's the number of shots.
Yeah, it's the number of attempts that they're getting up. So if they're making 40% on 30 attempts, I mean, usually that's bad for the defense, but I think when you're playing Houston, that's good for the defense, because they would rather shoot 35% on 60 attempts, because that means they're dictating the pace. But I don't know how many attempts they had today, but they definitely did not dictate the pace.
33.
So that's like 20 less than what they want.
Yep, absolutely. And Sean, I want to go ahead and touch on with you last on this is the number of rebounds, where the Lakers doubled, which is something they had to do the entire series. And for them to stand a chance against the Houston Rockets, not only did they need to out rebound, not only did they need to just go ahead and get a domination on the boards, they needed to go ahead and make a mark. And they did so today by a 2-1 margin, 52-26. What is the key of not only just staying on the boards, but being so relentless on the boards for the Lakers?
Yeah, I think it's just really great scouting by the coaching staff, Gerald. Just preaching and pounding it into, Caruso, Danny Green, KCP, whoever it is out there, Markeith, that you need to attack the boards. You attack the boards, you control the pace, they can't get into a rhythm. And I think it was just a collective effort tonight. Usually with rebounding, it usually just takes one guy to start it, and it has a synergistic effort. I'll give you an example. Do you guys remember the 2010 finals, the first quarter, game 7? I mean, we couldn't shoot a pea into an ocean, and yet there was Ron Artest rebounding the ball like a maniac, and he kept us in it. And eventually we pulled it out. But it usually starts with one person, and it flows out. That's my observation.
Well, absolutely. It was a great hustle on the boards. It worked all game long. Faces who we normally wouldn't see crash the boards, like Danny Green, were getting a tremendous amount of offensive rebounds. I thought that was also a key, but that was something that the Lakers had to do. When it was more of an even battle, that was just would be a win for Houston, as it was earlier in the series. But Laker Tom, I want to hear your final thoughts on this game before we go ahead and touch on tomorrow's games and head on out.
Yeah, there's two things that jumped out at me. The first thing is that I think that this entire approach that the Houston Rockets have, the entire overcommitment, if you will, to the analytics game and to the three-point shot reached an absurd level in this game, because there were guys who had good chances of getting fouled or making a layup who were passing the ball out. I mean, it almost reminded me of a game where you were down by 2 points and players would drive to the hoop, and even though they had a clear shot, they would fire the ball out to a three-point shooter because that was the only way they could win.
I don't know
And
if that was analytics, though. Sorry to cut you off. I don't think that was analytics. That LeBron and Davis were
that's almost fear of
getting their shot
Morey.
blocked. I mean, LeBron, the message when he had those blocks last game, it sent a clear message that not only do you have to worry about Anthony Davis, if you get by him, you have LeBron flying from the weak side of the court. And I felt like there were times where Houston missed layups because they're worried about getting their shot blocked. So I think,
but it's something about when it's like the only way they could possibly win the game or catch up was shooting threes. And that was partly because they were so far behind. So that was the first part about it that really struck me, is that they attacked the rim the same way as the Lakers attacked the rim, except the Lakers finished their plays and they passed out. The second thing was, and I hate to give credit to Charles Barkley because of how many inane, stupid things he says, but I have to agree with him that the Rockets are the Bucks of the West. They're the team that basically has a style that you're not going to win in the playoffs. There's no way you're going to go through four teams to win a championship playing that kind of basketball. It was an insane, and listen, this is coming from a guy who's a big analytics fan. I love the whole approach. I love the idea of spreading the thing. I think the Lakers should play that way all the time. But the simple truth is you can't play just that way, and you can't just totally rely upon that, because every game and every team has a different formula that you have to figure out in order to beat. They figured that out for the Rockets. I think a lot of the elements of that formula are going to be a blueprint for playing even the Clippers with Zubac in the middle, and definitely for playing the Celtics when we meet the Celtics in the finals.
So that leads me into this final
Could I
conversation.
add a footnote to that, Gerald?
Okay, footnote away, my friend. Footnote away.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention that's what's ironic about this whole thing to me, is that the Rockets took the approach that the Warriors had and tried to apply it to themselves. But what they failed to recognize was that in 2017 and 2018 and last year, the Warriors shot the mid-range very effectively in the regular season and in the playoffs. Certain teams did run them off the three-point line, but their guys were smart enough to recognize that I could still hit an 18-footer. I mean, what's the difference if Klay Thompson hits a 25-footer versus if he puts the ball on the floor because a team's closing out on him, and he takes an 18-footer.
1
Houston
point.
has
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
well, but the thing is, the Rockets aren't seeing that. Like, that's what I'm saying. Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, they can all see if a team's closing out. Okay, I'll just shoot this 18-footer. But the Rockets have capable shooters. Eric Gordon can do that.
Right.
He's a
But the Warrior,
professional scorer. You know, Harden can do it. Westbrook could do it. Westbrook only shot 2 mid-range shots tonight. He made one of them. That they were both good looks, but
Right.
he went away from it for some reason.
Well, he's not efficient in it.
the Warriors won it on
No,
defense.
he's not.
though.
That's true. That's
You know,
true.
what the Rockets don't have is Draymond Green and Kevin Durant or Steph Curry. So there's a huge gap in talent as well as size. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
small ball. The thing that was great about the Warriors at their peak is they played small ball with big guys who could actually play the game. They could play either way, and that's really what the Lakers have. That's why the Lakers playing small, I think, is their best formula, because it's the game that fits the skill sets of LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
And what I think the difference is with the Warriors shooting mid-range shots in Houston is that so Gordon and Westbrook are straight line drivers, right?
Yep.
And they have to put their head down, and they're not as smooth with it. Like if Steph has a pull up, he's not singular focused on I got to get to the rack.
Right.
And so it's easy for him to 1-2 pull up. Westbrook is usually only shooting his pull up if you're backing all the way off of him, and it's still somewhat of a rhythm shot, but he just doesn't have nowhere near the same touch as Klay and Steph. And then Durant can just pull up and elevate over the top because he's 7 feet tall. I just think with Houston, I do believe that they passed up a lot of mid-range shots. To me, that wasn't the difference. This series changed in the third quarter of last game when LeBron had all of those blocks. It's hard enough to shoot over AD. And then if Bron is playing free safety off Westbrook and he's able to fly around the court, and he wasn't just altering shots, he was sending them across the court. That sends a message. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, and Westbrook is one of the most relentless drivers, period. But even
and you can
then
see he wasn't. Well, I just want to say this. You can see he was not as active today as he was in that previous game.
no
Rafael.
cutting. Yeah.
Okay, but Houston so afraid of riling LeBron up and getting him to the point where LeBron has to go back to that higher activity level, which I was talking about the other day, because he has brought it up a notch, just like we talk about Rondo in the playoffs, especially defensively. They're so afraid of him inside blocking those shots, they decided to go ahead and play a very passive ball, and in way they just were treating it inside, because you can see the fact that they were very apprehensive taking the ball anywhere near LeBron.
Right. And I think another thing that hurts Houston is when Westbrook or Gordon, because I guess you can say they're out of control. I mean, they're straight line, they're head down, and they're going full speed ahead at the rim. When they miss, their momentum carries them out of the play, and then they have a tendency to do what when they miss? Flail their hands, talk to the refs. If AD or Bron gets the rebound, or especially if Bron gets the rebound, what's he going to do? Outlet it, and it turns into a fast break. So not only are they altering shots, they're beating them up at the rim. And when Houston would get by their guys, the Lakers knew, like, okay, well, they don't want to shoot the mid-range, and they're going to be reluctant to drive to the rim. So what are they doing? They're passing it out to the slots who's covered, and now they have to give the ball to Harden and reset with a late shot clock. And like I said, LeBron.
Hope is a free throw.
Yeah, I mean, like,
you take away the threes and you take away the layups.
And I feel like Harden's still attacked, and he's clever enough to make sure that he gets fouls, because he's always in control for the most part when he's going to the rim. While Westbrook and Gordon, hard straight line drivers, and there's really no moves when they're going to the rim. But Harden, he's going to throw off you the timing of the shot blockers with his, with his feet. I mean, I think there was one play where he got by Davis on it was like on the left baseline, and just because he knew how to change his feet up, he shot it before he did the 1-2 gather. Those guys don't have that, and so once Davis and LeBron, eliminated the potential of a drive, it just killed Houston's offense. It took like I said, the corner three away. And I said again, LeBron changed this series with those series of blocks in the third quarter. That momentum, that was it for Houston.
I wonder if he would have done that if they gave him a second team all defensive honors. Because I think I think that LeBron came out in that game determined to show everybody that was a bad decision, that he deserved to be at least on the second team.
Maybe that's the case. We'll have to actually hear from him on that, but because he didn't mention it in his post-game thoughts. Obviously, he's focusing on social justice issues, which is obviously more important at this point in time. But with the Lakers, they are up 3-1 after 110-100 victory over the Houston Rockets. Relatively easy for most of the entire game for the Lakers. And it looks like that the Lakers are in the Houston Rockets' heads at this point, and it looks like they will finish them out, as Laker Tom was saying, in 5 games here coming up on Saturday. But again, we will be here at the Lakers Fast Break to report on that. But also, as well, tomorrow night, Rafael and I will be by to talk to you about what's going on for tomorrow's games. And right after, you can go ahead and join us here at the Lakers Fast Break, because tomorrow the Clips and the Nuggets are coming up in their own Game 5 with elimination on the line. Plus, you also have as well, the best 2 words, I guess, from what I've been told and what I've been hearing in basketball. Game 7 coming up between Toronto and Boston, something that Rafael and I had predicted, although we certainly didn't expect it the way it was going, as far as on the verge of a 3-0, a half second away from a 3-0 lead for the Boston Celtics, gone awry, and now it goes to Game 7. Yes.
If Kemba gets that foul call, which he was fouled, they're moving on.
Well, I wish you were.
Hey, you know what? Sorry to interrupt, but that took me back to 2004. The Spurs are up 2-0 on the Lakers. They go back to LA. Lakers win both games. It's Game 5. Tim Duncan hits an incredible shot with 0.4 seconds left, with Shaquille O'Neal draped all over him. I mean, draped all over him.
Well, let's go ahead and recap now. Let's go ahead and preview the game coming up here for tomorrow in Game 7. Let's start with that one. And I'll start with you, Magic Man. Something that I said on my solo show yesterday, because Rafael fortunately couldn't be here at that time, was what I mentioned was a focus in on certain aspects. Yes, Nolan Powell took over in the second overtime, but for some reason, when Kyle Lowry was really in a groove in that fourth quarter, they went away from him and started going to the other guys like Siakam and Powell, who was ineffective at that point in time and didn't really really didn't get turned on until that second overtime. But I want to ask you this: when you have someone in that fourth quarter as effective as Lowry was, do you see Nick Nurse saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to stick with him," because Siakam has been very iffy all series long?
Yeah, definitely, Gerald. I think what's happened with Pascal is he's not establishing himself deep in the post like he did earlier this season. He's not effective. You're right. His play's been choppy. He'll play good in spurts, and then there were times yesterday when I saw Raps fans just cringing their teeth when they passed it to Siakam instead of letting Kyle continue to.
Or even Van Vliet was effective in spurts
yesterday. Exactly. So I think, it's a Game 7, man, and one thing we know about Nick Nurse is he's completely unpredictable. He will pull a rabbit out of the hat if he thinks it'll help him win. Mm-hmm. He doesn't play favorites either. If you're struggling, he'll sit you. He sit Norm Powell in Game 6 when they were down, and he needed a spark. He brought him back in the second overtime, and Powell played amazing. Norm has one or two incredible games in the playoffs for the Raptors, no doubt. So he had his game. In this one, I think it's going to take a collective effort, and I know Raphael's been harping on Marc Gasol to kind of put his imprint on the game, or at least try to, and he's got to be effective in Game 7 if the Raptors are going to win. If
Now,
Marc Gasol is ineffective, the Raptors will not win Game 7.
I think
Well,
they'll
Nolan-
just go small. They'll
Yeah,
just go OG at the 5.
Mm-hmm.
because it's worked with them.
I think Stevens can counter that. I remember him a Butler. I have a lot of respect for him and the way he makes little adjustments throughout the course of a game that can swing a matchup here or there. So,
Well, one of the things I want to ask is, like, we saw a great performance from Norman Powell in the last game, but Rafael, before I head over to Laker Tom on this, and that is this, with what's going on from the Boston perspective, one of the things I was, as an NBA fan, because I really don't have a dog in this show per se, I want to go ahead and ask you this. They relied way too heavily on a struggling Kemba Walker in that game, especially in the overtimes. They were going back and giving the ball to him. Go ahead, make the play, make the penetration, go ahead, handle the ball. And when you've got a superstar like Tatum out there on the floor and you're not feeding him the ball constantly, I saw that as an issue. Or even Jaylen Brown. He got some spots in there, but it was kind of a little bit inconsistent in the second half for me as well. It just seemed like a lot of Kemba Walker. And if he's struggling, I'm not sure if that's the right answer. So I ask you again, my friend, if Brad Stevens goes to a continuous line of Kemba Walker in that second half, or if it remains close, is that going to be the same kind of result that they get this time around?
That's a tough one because, like, if you look at yesterday's game, Walker was 2 for 11, and then they started going to Tatum. Tatum was the most efficient of their players, but he shot under 50%, but he also had 6 turnovers, and Brown was 11 for 30.
Including a great pass to Nick Nurse.
Yeah. So it was like, I think they tried all three and they just couldn't get the stops or the shots when they needed them the most. And Lowry had huge plays, but I had tweeted, I don't know, maybe it was the first overtime. And I said, because with both teams, you don't necessarily know who their closer is. And so I said,
Right.
I'm curious to see who is the closer for both teams. And both teams went to multiple guys. Like Siakam missed some bunnies at the rim. Then they went to Powell for isolation. And then they went to Lowry, to Van Vliet. And then I think Boston tried it with their guys also. And I think tomorrow's game is going to be similar to game 6. And it's going to come down to who can close, who's the best closer.
I think with Boston, the key to them is, like Rafael was saying, 2 out of the 3 have to play well. If 2 of the 3, Brown, Tatum, and Walker, if 2 out of the 3 play well, and you get a really good game out of Smart and or Wanamaker, they're really hard to beat.
Well, Laker Tom, I want you to go ahead and finish this conversation off, and I'll get from around the table their thoughts. I'm picking the Toronto Raptors to win the game. Rafael and I said, Rafael and I said it was going 7 games. I said the Raptors in 7. I'm still sticking with the Raptors. Laker Tom, who do you have for this game? As we have,
I didn't make a prediction earlier, so I have an advantage over you guys because I don't have a horse in the race already like you two do. And when I look at the way that Lady Luck has blessed the Toronto Raptors in last year's Eastern Conference Finals and in this particular series against the Celtics, I don't think there's going to be a third miracle. I think the Celtics are going to win this, and the Celtics and Lakers are going to be the ultimate bubble championship finals playoff situation.
You did kind of hint that earlier in the show.
And the problem I see with both of those teams is exactly what Rafael alluded to, that they don't have a closer. I mean, in the Lakers situation, it's going to be LeBron or AD. They're two best players. One of those guys, and maybe both of them are going to have the ball in their hands as you go down the stretch. Doesn't mean that they may not throw a pass over to Caruso to hit a three or KCP to hit a three. I thought Caruso, by the way, this was the best game he's played as a Laker. His timely cuts, his excellent defense, his outside shooting, he had everything there. A couple of stupid passes and a couple of turnovers, but generally an excellent performance. Boston, it's going to come down to the coaches, I think. And these are two of the brightest young coaches that are in the league. And it's going to be which one of them puts together the best offensive plan and defensive plan for this game. It's wonderful to have a game 7. A Friday night game 7 is always great too, especially for those of you who have to work during the day. I don't, so it doesn't really matter to me. But
Toronto hates it.
At any rate, I think what I'm hoping for is a close game.
Oh, I think you'll get it.
Yeah, I think you'll get it indeed.
Well, I think there's a chance the Celtics could blow them out, and simply because
I went ahead. And,
we haven't seen Toronto blow the Celtics out, but we have seen the Celtics blow Toronto out in this series, and that tells me a little bit about what the potential is if a team comes out and really puts all of the pieces together. Anyway.
Sean, I wanted to go ahead and I'll give it to you, but one of the things I've learned in doing this podcast is never try to talk over Laker Tom. It's only going to get you frustration. Go ahead.
I was with you, Gerald and Rafael. I had this as a grueling 7-game series. I just thought that Toronto would have difficulties, and I thought it would go 7 just because of their metal. So I'm gonna stick with the Raps. I picked the Raps. I'll stick with the Raps and Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you didn't,
Jimmy's revenge, by the way.
Well, you wouldn't be able to leave out your door there up there in the Great White North. So you wouldn't be able to go outside if you picked
Well, what's so tantalizing about this is that if the Raptors, is that if the Raptors do win, Jimmy Butler has the Raptors right where he wants them. It was 4 bounces. I'm sure he's thinking about that when he watches the game tomorrow.
But the guy who shot is going to be playing for the Clippers.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. He's laughing about this, I think, personally.
Actually, it wouldn't motivate me until I met the Clippers in the finals. Then I would remember what Kawhi did.
Jimmy's a different dude, man. Jimmy's a different dude.
He finds motivation wherever he tries to. That's why he's so great.
I wasn't at the game, but we have season tickets. A few of our paramedic guys, and he heard it from Toronto, so he wants to get him back. I know. I'm not saying I know this man, but I know his mindset on the court.
He's like LeBron. He'll make up. If there is no motivation, he'll put it on his own whiteboard and make it up.
Of course.
Well, let's get ahead. Raphael in here to share his thoughts on who will end up. Because you told me 7 games, but you never ended up telling me who.
No, I said Toronto. It was the Rockets Lakers series. I never gave a prediction, but I got Toronto.
Who do you got in the Lakers series now?
It's over.
5 games. Lakers.
All right.
Is that what I hear, Raphael? Lakers in 5?
Yeah, it's over. I mean,
and so we can go ahead and get to what we're working on with Lakerholics.com and NBA Draft Junkies. Let's go ahead and say what Raphael is now known for saying when it comes to the Clippers and the Nuggets. It's over. Magic Man?
It's over. It's 5 games. It's over. I predicted 5.
I'll do a short one, too. Ask me.
Go ahead, Laker Tom.
It's over.
Raphael?
It's done.
Can I just add something?
Go for it.
Yeah. Did anybody find Dame's Twitter feed today? Because he was on fire talking about what he thought about Michael Porter. I'd be interested in what you guys thought about that.
Well, it's a rookie. I'm just going to tell you this. If you heard, because I know that was the second talk of the day behind what Daniel House Jr. and who else, as far as Houston, as far as allowing a female individual to test per se, or everything that went down in regards to that. The reason why he was suspended for today's game, but as far as violating that was the talk behind it was rookie. Well, actually, he's not rookie. Second-year player Michael Porter Jr., essentially a rookie because he was injured his first year, coming in as the Nuggets' third best player. Although eventually, within a year or two, we could be saying he's the top player for the Nuggets because he's got skills, he's got a lot of mad game, he's got a silky smooth jumper, but he's got a lot of confidence right now on the offensive end. We won't talk defense right now because his defense is still atrocious, but when it comes to the offensive end, he is a really great option, but complained in the loss. After the loss by of the Nick for the Nuggets in their previous game against the Clippers, and complained heavily about not getting enough touches, which as a young player is going to set off an entire locker room. So sure. I ask you, I know your experience from Sean, and that's why you wanted to bring it up. I'm just going to tell you right now that if you're in that locker room, you cannot be happy about voicing that to the public. Rafael, as someone who knows or certain players around the league, you cannot tell me this went over well.
No, it didn't. And I thought John Hollinger had the tweet of the day around it. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but he had mentioned that he fell in the draft not only because of his back issues, and then he just kind of left it up to you to decide what was that reason. And I think he comes off selfish. And you can say this is the third time within the last 6 months that he has said or tweeted something that other NBA players did not like. The one was, I think, with the George Floyd situation. He must have said something along the lines of, why is everybody praying for this family? I think you need to pray for the family of the officers. Valid points, but it's just one of those things that's not going to be received well. And then he said something else. I know, I guess they call them All Lives Matter, which, that's his opinion. But in this climate, it's not going to be received well. And I know Steven Jackson had tweeted something to him. And I had told one of my friends earlier, he said, well, why is a rookie even getting interviewed in this situation? I said, well, because they know he'll say something that's controversial. So right now, I mean, he's going to give you clickbait material. But yeah, I think that he was wrong for saying that. And then also, it would be like Kuzma saying that the Lakers didn't give him enough shots. Well, no, they're not going to run plays for you, Kyle Kuzma. Maybe if you cut or ran the floor or something like that, you may have to generate your own touches in a sense. So, yeah, I don't think it went well in the locker room. I think that, they're going to have to tell him, you got to chill out with the tweets and with the comments. And he may be in a sense like Kyrie now. With Kyrie, you're going to get a good sound bite if you ask him a question. Right. And even Derrick Rose at one point. Derrick Rose was just brutally honest no matter what question that you asked him. So, yeah, I think Porter Jr. needs to have
a conference with his agent.
What's that?
Needs to have a conference with his agent.
Yeah, and I'm sure the coaches or whoever has talked to him, but it just wasn't a good look for him.
No, it wasn't. But we'll wait and see if he does get more touches. And if that is, that will do anything to go ahead and stave off Nuggets from elimination, at least for one more game. We'll see if that works tomorrow. I don't think it will. As Rafael would say, well, now he says they're done. So, it's done when it concerns this series. I wholeheartedly agree. We all think it's done after this game tomorrow. But Rafael and I will be back tomorrow to go ahead and report on that right here at the Lakers Fast Break. But before we head out, Rafael, I want to turn it back over to you. Not only did you have an outstanding appearance on Chris LeBron's great show, Off the Ball podcast, you do so much for NBA Draft Junkies and the Run the Floor podcast as well. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you're doing. I know same old, but you had a day off to go ahead and rest and recharge. What are your thoughts on what you're doing? No day off? Well, from me anyways, a day off for me is like a vacation for most people.
I had a night off. today, did I put up something today? I'm not sure. I know I had 2 podcasts today that I have to edit and put up. And then I have one tomorrow. So yeah, I have a couple of just different podcasts where I've invited different subscribers to come on my show and talk about their big board or their mock lottery. So I have 2 of those that I should have up sometime tomorrow. And then now that I have an extra month for the NBA draft, I just got to find ways to drag out this content. I mean, it's and so I've been pretty busy, and I guess I don't have to rush as much now because I had a goal of videos that I wanted to put up before the draft, and so now I got an extra 30 days to get it done. So I could probably slow down a little bit, but yeah, it's just the same old, and who knows? With all this time, I think there could be a situation where maybe different players want different footage out there, because I know like their agents can't send it to teams, but I could send it to teams. So I think that could be something that I could have going on in the near future.
There you go. I'm so happy for you. I wish you all the success in the world. It is, once again, the Run the Floor podcast and NBA Draft Junkies, not only in a podcast form, but as you saw while he was talking, so many dozens and dozens of prospect videos that are out there on NBA Draft Junkies right there for you. Again, his NBA Draft Junkies podcast, his Run the Floor podcast. You got to listen to all the great stuff, watch all the great things he's doing, and of course, also visit his overall page, NBADraftJunkies.com. And for these guys right here, Laker Tom and Magic Man, before we head on out, Sean, a.k.a. Magic Man, I'll head it over to you, my friend, the Madman from Toronto. What are you up to as far as talking about at LakerHolics.com?
Well, Gerald, I'm picking up on something I saw that is giving me some positive vibes about going into the next series. JaVale McGee and Dwight look very engaged watching the game. I know JaVale has the dealing with the ankle situation, and Dwight was a DNP again tonight. But they both were watching the game, paying attention, talking to one another. And that was really important, I thought, because they're definitely going to be needed in the next series.
I thought you were going to say for a second, well, JaVale had the sore ankle situation, that Dwight Howard had the sore gluteus maximus situation sitting on the bench, from sitting on the bench so long. So,
but it's great. He didn't look like he had a sore ego tonight, though.
Yeah, I mean, he looks very engaged. Yeah, him, except for the part where they were both, like, as he was getting closer, they were laying down on the right there on the stanchion there. That was kind of funny. But they look engaged. They look, and I know it was noted by the guys at TNT about how engaged they still were when the Lakers were rolling, and that's good. That these egos are not bruised to the point where it's becoming a detriment to the team. That they are still engaged, and this is something that we've talked about all season, about how the Lakers have the best chemistry in the NBA. At times, it was frayed so far in this bubble, but it looks like it's been repaired as the team has gone on round by round. Laker Tom, I know you're working on a lot of stuff for LakerHolics.com as well. So before we head on out, give us the update. What's going on for Laker Tom at LakerHolics.com?
Well, I think there's 2 things that I'm looking at, and they're very closely related in my mind. I think that while the Clippers play an entirely different style of basketball than the Houston Rockets do, I think that there were important lessons and key rotations that have come out of the series with the Rockets that basically will be included in the game plans for the Clippers. I think for sure we're going to see Rondo, and I think we're going to see a lot of Rondo and Morris when we play small. I think we're going to see a lot of Rondo, period, because I think that he's in a Western Conference Finals. The way Rondo's been playing is exactly what the Lakers needed. He's going to be the wild card in that series, I feel. I also feel that Morris is going to transform the way that we play small ball. And I think that we're going to see when we go small, even against the Clippers, that we're going to try to push Zubac to the bench whenever we go small. We're going to spread it out just like we did against the Rockets, 5 out, opening up lanes for LeBron to drive and so forth, and forcing them to put Montrezl Harrell in there, who's a terrible defender. I think that I think we're going to go back to JaVale starting. I think that makes sense, and I think Howard's going to get minutes also. And we'll play big like that because I definitely feel that JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard can match up really well with Vaga Zubac. So I think that those are changes that flow from this series, things we learned, not necessarily about the Rockets, but really about ourselves. How do we play defense best? And the truth of the matter is that our best defense is when we play small, when we have guys flying around, when we have LeBron flying around. And so I think that you're going to see half of the time, we're going to play half of the game big with JaVale or Howard in the game, but we're going to play 24 minutes of the same type of spread it out wide, 5 out, small ball, with LeBron and AD being our bigs that are going to protect the rim. And those are the things that I'll be working on in Lakerholics.com. As Sean knows, and anybody who goes to the site knows, those are the things that I'll be pushing in the comments and pushing on Twitter as at LakerTom. So I think this was a valuable series. I've been impressed with Frank. I've really been on Frank's butt the entire.
Oh, really?
And I've apologized to him once, and I might even do another apology story for him because I think he's made terrific adjustments at both ends of the court. I was never really doubting that he would make the right adjustments defensively, but I always really had a lot of questions about the adjustments offensively.
Oh, you were doubting.
And I'm really impressed. I wish they had the inside access that some of the writers do to ask him questions about, and to talk to other members of the staff to find out how the decisions were made to move to the 5 out stuff and to stop putting a dunker down in there when we're playing small, to stop trying to post up Anthony Davis. But we learned a lot about the team and where our strengths are, and the performance, even though we didn't finish this game off well, the performance in the last 3 games has really given us a recipe and a blueprint for how we're going to play all the way through the rest of the playoffs.
The only thing is, though, and this we'll talk about more and more, is they cannot be so, ready to go ahead and give up the mid-range game, because you cannot give up the mid-range game to Kawhi, or otherwise
you have to double Kawhi and get the ball out of his hands because he'll make the right play, just like Harden will.
Well, we'll talk about that and more once both teams clinch the championship as far as their end of the playoffs, once they both get their sides done, which looks like to be a mere formality at this point, with both the Lakers and the Clippers up 3-1 in their series, and Rafael saying they're done, and I'm saying they're done, and Laker Tom and Sean are both saying they're done. So we're looking forward to going ahead and reporting on that. And also tomorrow, Rafael and I will be back once again, giving you a wrap-up of the day's events in the NBA playoffs. Looking forward to it. Plus, Laker Tom and Sean will be back down the line here as the Lakers continue their drive towards the playoffs and drive towards another championship. But we'll see how that happens. We'll see how it goes when we've got a great weekend in store for us here in the NBA playoffs. And we're going to cover it for you right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.